Hey, welcome everyone. Before we get started on the first and second layer system presentation, I would like to go over a few logistics, right? So first, as we continue this presentation and you guys have questions or concern, any suggestions, please let's leave that to the end, and later on you comment on the video below, message me on Facebook, or we could email and talk about your questions or any concerns. Now I would like to talk about what's unique about our training presentation today is that we offer installation and sheet metal training online and a lot of shareable content via our social media and other platforms. Our presentation like this, we can interact with our community while supporting each other. Another thing I want to share is something that we typically offer free training video through Facebook and YouTube, educating our audience about pipe installation and the latest installation techniques. Also, we continue thriving to improve and evolve online training and webinars. So if you leave any constructive comment or suggestion on how can we better accomplish this together for future engagement, that would be highly appreciated. Or maybe you feel we didn't make the mark today. We encourage you to fill out our survey after this webinar or presentation. We use your feedback to improve our webinar online courses and provide information that has the most value to you. And, and on that note, guys, we could go ahead and get started. Welcome to Quadrant Shop. My name is Oliver Mendieta, and I have been in this industry for about 10 years. I am Energy Appraiser Certified by the NIA, the National Installation Association. By the NCCR, I'm also certified. And I have worked over 30 job sites between oil refinery, chemical plants, energy plants, and paper mill, and also way more. One thing I do want to make clear is about knowledge and experience. Knowledge for me is basically like reading a book, right? And you understand the book, now you're telling the person what you understood from the book or what you acknowledge from that book, right? But experience is something, it's basically doing the work with your hand and you know that it works. Basically, what I'm doing here is to transmit my experience and my knowledge to convey you this information, to sharpen your skills, not to convince you. I know this work. And this is just a disclaimer, guys. So for any pirates out there trying to copy, share, whatever my video, it is prohibited. You can't do it without the consent of Quarter Shop. I had to throw out there. I have been getting a lot of information on that. Let's move on. So first and second layer system. Today topics we're going to talk about layer system, main purpose, after pre-placement, hot and cold installation, and at the end I got some video for you guys to watch about installation, right? For first and second layer. So what is installation layer system basically, right? So for me, first layer and second layer installation, or for hard cold work, is something that we need to verify clearance to install installation according with project drawings, operation performance parameters of the specification, such a access to control valve or for maintenance repair. We have to take all this into account because what we want to know exactly where are we going to install, what's the purpose, what's the material, the temperature, the thickness, the chemical. We have to take all this thing into account, even the weather around this equipment or piping. Just let me unpack this for you so we can have a further more of understanding. Either it's a very hot or mainly cold system. Let's say it requires special thickness to maintain a refractory temperature above 850 Celsius, which can also be converted to a 1500 degree Fahrenheit for like a boiler system, a turbine, exhaust systems, piping also. For stainless steel piping coat surface for LNG project, right, that show cryogenic temperature of 185 negative Celsius. So meaning that all the instruments, right, all the tubing, conduit connection, support, hanger, scaffold that are involved on the piping or on the equipment are going to be spaced out basically equivalent to the installation wall thickness. So we can have room to install, right? We are not basically covering things we're not supposed to be insulating other than the piping or the equipment itself as professional insulators. Also, you got to keep in mind that there are other insulation materials that you may use to provide the same thickness or better prosperity insulation thickness for other insulation material should be based on calculation and thermal conductivity or insulation class. So if we're reading the specs and we want to find out is it for personal protection, is it for frost protection, fire protection, right? We have to take some type of, and this thing is classified as class 1, 2, or A, B, and we have to take these things into account before insulating the pipe. So basically, you know, there's so much than just to guessing. Let's just throw a 2 inch, let's just throw a 1.5 inches, and without looking at all the factors that are played to keep the right energy or heat inside or coldness inside the pipe. Let's talk about hot and cold insulation first before we understand the installment process. On benefiting the pipe, right, it will help reduce emission, control condensation, conserve energy, and help save building operation costs. Stabilize process performance, meaning that if there's been a pipe, a tank, anything that has not been maintained or covered with insulation to keep the heat within the equipment, that means you're forcing other motors, right, or generators to keep the same thickness on the pipe as if it were to be covered or insulated. And also for personal protection, right? So what is thermal insulation, right? So thermal insulation is an energy saver that operates the process system at a low cost. There are substances or material used which are very low in thermal conductivity. It controls the movement from the heat from one place to another, like fiberglass, wool, rock wool, polyurethane, and our conventional thermal insulation material. Insulation material like this are very poor conductor of heat and are therefore good thermal insulation. Let's talk about cold work now, right? Everything that gotta do with cryogenic. So cryogenic is mainly used in process unit, liquefy of gases, always involving very low temperature, ranges between 15 Celsius to negative 75 Celsius, and elevated pressure. In addition to the risk of water and ice forming at the cryogenic temperature, refinery use aluminum and stainless steel for the cold section of the plant to avoid embitterment problems and that is encountered with carbon steels on pipes and on tanks. Let's continue. Now that we have an idea how the difference between core and hard work, right? One is easy to put on, the hard work is easy to put on, easy to work with. Could be dusty, could be itchy, could even be you could even dry up your skin, but it is easy to work to install. The core work, basically, you have to take your time. You have to be detailed. You have to be vapor barrier, vapor stop, vapor damp, all this type of thing. Ball joints, differential joints, all this had to be so tight and sealed without voids that it takes probably 3 to 4 more times the installment than hard work because of the details that are involved, especially if it's like a 2 or 3 layer system. So let's look at this. Let's look at this graph we have right here of different pipe installation for pipes, for tanks, for bigger pipes, for tank farm. Let's say tanks that are so big that it don't have a curve, it's straight up flat, right? So basically, pipe installation most commonly, all distributors use it for 1.5 to 24-inch pipe. You could find your installation about for those piping almost anywhere. So the thickness is up to 3 inches, right? It's if you want anything above that, it's gonna have to be basically special order, right, or double layer. So, for example, if you're using let's say a 24 by 2, right, and your piping has to be a 24-inch pipe with a 4 wall-inch thickness. So that means your first layer is gonna be 24 by 2, and your second layer is gonna be 28 by 2. It's gonna equivalent to 4-inch thickness on the sides. Now you have quad segment, which is a bigger diameter. It comes in a different form. You got hex pipe covering. You got curved segments, right? It comes in curved sections to complete of a 30, let's say 30-inch or 126-inch in diameter. So you have to use a bunch cord. You have to band it, per section in order to have a continuation to put the next piece. You also have your V growth, right? Your installation blocks. Basically, they're about 12 inches width and 36 inches long, right? So this block right here, you place it on a tank or on a large curved equipment when you install it, basically you slap it on there, and that V curve that comes in the installation already prefab, you just slap it on and it'll break into that curve basically. And then you have flat blocks, right, for flat surface basically. So pre-placement, you have to look at things before placing the material, right? You have to look at, make sure the weather is gonna help you install. So basically, there's no moisture, right? There's no oil, grease, dirt on the pipe. You have to have a clean surface, a clean burr piping. Um, Heat and tube connection or pour welding. So you have to make sure of the heat trace is done correctly. You have to make sure that if you see a leak, the weld doesn't look right, or you see holes on the weld, you have to report it to your supervisor or foreman. You want to make sure that you don't insulate that and possibly prevent for something happening that could have injured other people or yourself. So you gotta be aware of that. But let's take a look at this right correctly before continuing. So let's say that let's look at three things, right? The before, what we gotta do before, what we have to do after we have a checklist, and then what we do in the installment process, right? So let's look at three things. Before, we have to make sure the correct installation system used. Also, the installation material is correctly stored before being used. I've seen in the field, guys, that we have, let's say, pear wrap that goes on the outside as a vapor barrier to cold insulation. If you don't properly storage pear wrap, it would not stick at all, and basically you're gonna have to order more different kind. And I also seen material that people living in the weather outside, they storage they use all material that been storage with that heat and stuff like that. The insulation become all dusty and it'll break very easily. So you gotta take care of the insulation material. Um, Also, you have to make sure before insulating that where you're gonna connect to another pipe, or you're working next to a pipe, or you're gonna remove insulation of pipe, is non-asbestos insulation safely removed or protected, right? Just discussed that. Now, I want to check for pre-placement. After I did all that, I want to check for pre-placement. So surface, let's look at three things. Surface need to be prepped and painted before installation. Clips support installed for vertical vessels and vertical piping. Steam tracing and electro heat tracing completed. Let's note this. If the pipe or equipment is heat traced, the installation should be oversized to the near size to accommodate the tracing. Let's say you have a 3-inch pipe. In a 3-inch pipe, you have steam heat trace around it, right? Or you had tubing, steam tubes around it. So now you may have to get a 4-inch thickness, 4-inch pipe thickness, right? On the insulation pipe size, you have to get a 4-inch pipe size. You cannot use the same 3-inch thickness because you cannot carve the insulation in order to fit tightly around the heat tracing or the steam tracing. You have to order a size bigger. If it's a 3-inch pipe with steam tracing, it's a 4-inch insulation, right? And also, I've seen other places where you have thick heat tracing tubings, right? So I probably order something like a 3.5 or a 4.5 or a 5-inch pipe thickness. It gets complicated when you have supports and then especially on the tubing. The tubing, I believe, it breaks every 20 or 10 feet, and then you gotta make cutouts around that, right? They're like little loops cutouts you have to make. So you have to order a size bigger. That's the whole purpose about this. Now that I acknowledge all that, got my installation, got the right size, heat tracing or not rim traces, everything been verified. Now the pipe is clearance for insulators to insulate the pipe. Now what I want to do is, basically cut the material and have my stack material cut, right? Either if it's the first or second or third layer system, just keep in mind that the outer layer and the inner layer have no common joints, right? Also, dry insulation is protected until waterproof. So if you already start insulating the pipe and you have to continue on the following day, you have to put some type of protection on it. You cannot put metal, right? Because it will make no sense. Put it on to get off. But you could put some polyplastic on it that is good for the weather until the next day, right? Flanges, valves, and support correctly is insulating and staging form. So you gotta keep in mind that if it's a 2-layer system, you cannot insulate the valve or the flange before you insulate the pipe, right? You do have to have bolt clearance. So the bolt clearance, the length of the bolt plus 1 inch on both sides. You have to bring the pipe insulation up to the bolt clearance. Once you bring that up to the bolt clearance, now you insulate the valve, right? So first layer of piping, now you put the first layer of the valve, right? And then you do the second layer, covering the first layer basically of the piping, making it more like a staggered position. And then you start the second layer for the valve. So everything has to be in a stage. It cannot be even bone joints. It cannot be even circumferential joints. It can't longitudinal. None of those joints could match. They have to be staggered. So in this lesson, I'm gonna show you how you install first layer, and then in another video, I'll show you how to install second layer. So real quick before I play the video, for single layer purpose, right? We have to make sure we install this. Only keep in mind that for single layer, we're gonna install this at a give me 1 second. I'm trying to figure something out here real quick. So basically what we're gonna do here for a single layer, keep in mind that we have to install this at your 3 and 9 o'clock longitudinal, right? All voids circumferential joints must be tight and sealed, right? No voids. So you see this piece right here. My full piece is 36. That's how it normally come. And I have a piece of 36 is 18. So I would, some insulation are heavier than the other one, like calcium. You don't want to start with the heavier portion on the bottom while you're trying to put a band or a wire on it, right? So keep in mind that you put the larger piece, the heavier piece on top, and the lighter piece on the bottom, and then you wire this, right? And you have a continuation. You put another piece here. Let's play the video so we can see. You put your big piece on top, and then you put your small piece on the bottom. And then basically what you're gonna do next is continue it, right? Once you wire it, you continue. Now keep in mind, if you're working with a big diameter pipe, right? A 30-inch diameter, 24-inch diameter, keep in mind that this stuff cannot be wire. It had to be band. I believe after 12 inches diameter with insulation or without insulation, it have to be band. So keep in mind that band, you have to install band. And if it's the 2-layer system, depending how heavy, or if the tank is on a horizontal position, you might have to install the expand spring. So now that we cut the insulation of 36 and 18, we have a continuation of a full piece. So we start the first 2 pieces here, and now we just installing full pieces, right? And going until we have a finish on the piping, or until we connect to an all insulated side. And just make sure all your cutouts are very tight. Make sure everything, the insulation is tight as well. Because as a metal man, you will have problems installing your metal if the insulation is not right. And then you wire it, like it's showing in the video. And basically, that's how you insulate the pipe. And you just want to make sure you do a good job and you don't have to come back the first time. Cut the wire as you go. There's a trick in cutting the wire, right? You have to wrap the wire within the wire and then tighten it as close to the insulation, making a little groove in the insulation while you're tightening it. You don't want the wire to poke out, and then the metal man installing the metal, and then you can see the print of the wire on the other side, or even you scratching yourself with the wire, hurting yourself or damaging your clothes, like I've seen before, right? So this is our experience. And just making sure everything is tight and sealed. Let's look at the other slide. As we continue, right, second layer system basically is very important. Like I mentioned at first, all circumferential and bone joints have to be in a staggered position. Also, the cutout and installing valve and flanges have to be in a stage position, right? You cannot, I repeat again, you cannot make all bolt joints or longitudinal joints match the inner layer. I'll show you an example in the next slide. Let's look at this pipe from the front, right? This is the pipe itself, and we got the first layer right here. Look at first layer. First layer is at your 6 o'clock and your 12 o'clock. So when this is a 2-layer system, your first layer is going to be at a latitude of 12 o'clock and 6 o'clock. Your second layer is going to be on a longitude of 9 o'clock and 3 o'clock, right? I have the description right here. On the first layer, you're going to cut your piece at 9 inches and your second piece at 27. You put your 9 inches on the bottom and 27 on top, and then you continue with a full piece, right? And just always double checking is at your 12 and 6 o'clock latitude. And then your second layer, you're going to cut it at 18 piece, right? And the 36 and the full piece. And you're going to install it on the longitude position from 9 to 3 o'clock, like I showed you in the first video. But it's just a different installment than the first video. So now we're going to see the installment. If you look at this layer right here, the first layer, I already installed all my first layer, and it's at my 12 o'clock and 6 o'clock, right? Now I'm getting ready to install my second layer system. I put it over here just for training purpose. Now keep in mind that I wired my first layer. Most of the time, guys, depending on the size of the piping, right? If you have a 12-inch diameter or more on the insulation, including the piping, you have to put bands on it. And then all those places are very strict, and whether you put blue bands or stainless steel bands. Let's play the video to have a better understanding. So, as you see, I already installed my first layer, right? I know I repeated this, but it's a learning between both of us. We have a 9-inch and a 27-inch piece, and then I continue over here with my 36-inch piece all the way to the end. Now I'm starting with my second layer, right? So basically my second layer is going to be at 18-inch right here, and now it's going to be at 36 full piece, right? And I'm going to have a continuation going all the way down. So keep in mind that for core work is a lot more strict, right? Because basically the first layer and the piping itself have to be vapor barrier, right? Vapor stop. So you have to install vapor stop. That's like a whole nother, probably another whole different presentation explaining how core work installation is installed and how it works. But it's a lot different than how work installation. What I'm showing you is how work. These tools right here on the side, they are very good tools. The circumferential ruler from Lufkin is really good. It's really good and helpful. And this tool right here is really helpful. So I want to give you a quick pick what I have on inside my installation course. You can see here I have 5 lessons, right? Basic safety, tools of the trade math, pipe installation, and installing or making cutouts on the installation for lesson 5. It's a really good course. I talk a lot more about details in there. I break things down. I use 3D models, and I break things down a lot more, right? A lot more detail than I'm just doing this for a presentation training purpose for this specific video. But if you go into the course, it's a lot more detail. Now another pick is my sheet metal course. I have 10 patterns, right? I have the first common pattern that you see in the field every day, which is your stub pipe, caps, and beauty band, bevel on Eco-T, and I also have how to make it waterproof, guys. So if you guys don't mind, go take a look or share it with somebody that you think may want to learn this system. Other than that, guys, I thank you very much, and I appreciate your attention. If you have any question, like I said, please email me or any suggestion, feedback, guys. Let me know. Let me know if I missed the mark or I forgot to miss something, or something that I may forget. So, other than that, I appreciate you all. I'll see you in the next video.